Hey, this is Carrie's Canary Quilt, and it is week 26 of the Dear Jane Quilt Along. I mean, I thought we were halfway, but I think we actually hit halfway right here this week. At least with these border blocks, we're going to finish out 2 of these side rows. Anyway, what we have in store for this week, especially with EQ8, is I'm going to make a couple of modifications. So, last week there was a block that didn't have a variation for applique, and I redid it to be an applique. I'm going to have the same thing this week. It just surprised me that it did not have an applique variation. So we can look forward to that. We've got a no Y seam variation. That's a real simple one. And we're using some templates this week, so a little bit different. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button, notification bell. You get notified of all my Dear Jane content and all the other fun stuff we got going on here. If you don't want to go through any of the EQ8 stuff we got here, then you can check out the links down below. I have construction time codes for each of the blocks, so you can go straight to the blocks. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start with filling in my quilt, my color quilt here. Let's see. Again, I have kind of a hodgepodge of batiks this week. Don't really have a theme. So that's what I'm using. So let's start with C11, Soldiers and Sailors Monument. This one is going to be templates, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with those templates. Then we have H6 Pie Sail, and down here is mine. So there we go. There's H6. H10 Ben's Bow Tie. Oh my gosh, this thing is getting filled in. And we have L10 Nan's Naiad? Not sure what that is. Anyway, this one is mine with the purple color. And so that's where L10 goes. And then we got RS13 Marlene's Pirouette. And that goes here, and we need to rotate. We still need to start filling out the top here. When are we going to do that? All right, well, let's get started on our blocks. Here is Soldiers and Sailors Monument, and I'm not making any modifications to this one. Actually, let's go back and take a look at the drawing. So we have applique on the center here. And I don't want the 2 appliques on top of each other. So if we take a look at the templates, I'm going to take this circle here once I get it printed and cut out, and then I'm going to center it, draw it out, and cut it out of this template here so that my background comes through the circle instead of putting the circle on top. So that's the only difference I'm going to do here on this block. So that is C11. All right, for H6 Pie Sail, it's called Pie Sail. This is what our block looks like. The 2 variations for this are also pieced. So we have all these curves that we're potentially going to have to do in piecing this 4.5-inch block. I don't want to do that. I personally don't want to do that. Let me know if you're going to do that, but I personally don't want to. So I'm going to change this to an applique. And the gray parts you see here are going to be my applique. So I've got these quarter pie pieces in the corner, and then I've got this gray center here that I am going to make an applique. The other option we have is you could do just 1 5-inch background piece and then set these pieces in here. Or you could piece together this 9 patch and have these seams in here if you want to. I was thinking I'd piece my 9 patch. It would help me maybe line these pieces up. So I think that's what I'm going to do at this point. But you don't have to do that. You could use just a 5-inch background piece. So what I need to do is I need to build this block out again and then turn it into an applique, just like we did last week if you watched that. So what I want to do is, number one, I want to take note that my seams are 1 1/8 and 3 3/8. So that's my grid I'm working with. The other thing I want to make note of is that, like right here, my curve starts at 1/4 inch and ends at 2 inches. So that will make it easy. I can draw my middle from there, and the rest of these will be the same. So those are the dimensions I need to remember when I redo this block. So I'm going to go over to New Block up here in the left-hand corner. I'm going to choose Pieced and Applique because that's what I want to do. And I'm going to choose Easy plus Applique. So I need to choose line and go over here and, like I said, can I choose? Yep, 1 1/8 and 3 3/8, and then the same on the side here. So we got our, we'll make our 9 patch. All right, so I need to make those 1/4 pie arcs up here in the corner. So each of our corner patches won't have anything in them. We're just going to have 1/4 arcs on this side and this side. So let's go to arc. I'm going to start at 1/4 inch up here. And I'm going to draw my arc over to 2. And I'm going to hit the space bar to change the direction of it. And I'm going to drop it right there. So there we go. There's our first arc. So I believe at this point I probably can pick it, clone it, and start rotating it to put it where I want. I want it there. All right, there are our pie pieces. So what I want to do now is draw in this center piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the curves in here. I was thinking differently. I want to put the curves in here because I'm going to go and draw these appliques out, and then I can come back and delete these curves. All right, so I'm going to clone these and put those on the inside. All right, there we go. I have recreated this block. I'm not going to color it in yet. I want to color the applique in when I get it drawn out. So now down here at the bottom, we need to go to our applique tab, and I need to draw these pie shells, pie shapes in. So I'm going to zoom in on one of these so I can draw it better. And I need 2 straight lines. So over here on the left, in all our choices, I want to choose the straight line choice. And I'm going to start right there where that node was. And I'm going to bring it right down to here, this corner. And then I'm going to draw another straight line starting down here over to this node. And now I'm going to go to this Bezier curve. And I'm going to go from this point up here and just do my best, bring it down here. And there we filled it in. Now I need to edit it, grab the line I want to edit and use my little arms here to line up. There's my line. There's my line, and there we go. I think that'll work. So if we zoom out, we can do the same thing. We can clone, pick it, clone it, rotate it 180, and then bring it down here. And this is just for coloring in because we really only need one of these. So I'm going to fill all my pie shapes in, and then I'm going to come back and do the center. All right, so I want to draw my shape now on the inside of this. So I'm going to zoom in. And I don't want pie shapes here because I don't want these appliques. I don't want the pie shape applique in here. I want this center applique. That's the dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my curves first, get them lined up, and then I'm going to connect them with my straight lines. So let's see how this works out. So I've got it on my Bezier curve. I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to just draw down to this node. And then I'm going to edit. Get it lined up. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to come back here to draw. And I'm going to draw a straight line. And then draw a curve from that point to this point. And then work on this curve. So I think what I said was I was going to draw the straight lines in later, but I don't think I need to. There we go. There's our centerpiece. So let's zoom back out. That's what it's going to look like. I can now color it. Let's do this for my background. And then my corners on the inside are my background. I don't remember what color this is going to be, but these are the colors. Those are my appliques. So there you go. That's how I changed it to an applique. I'm surprised they didn't have one again in Dear Jane add-on for EQ8, but that's what I'm doing, changing it to an applique so I don't have to do all those tiny little curves. So before we can print this, we need to come back here and go back to Easy Draw, and we need to now delete where our applique is. We only want to leave our grid, our 9-patch grid. I don't want that. I want only the curves. Don't need those lines. Actually, if we turn off applique, turn it off. There we go. I can get rid of the curves. Let's see if you can hit Shift and choose a bunch of them. And delete. Yep, you can do that. All right. Learn something new. Turn the applique back on. So now we have our 9-patch in the background, our applique on top. That's what it looks like. Let's go see what our templates look like. All right, so all our applique templates are right here. And you only really need one of these pie shapes. And then these are the shapes we need right here to build our 9-patch in the background. And this is our center. And then, like I said, we only need really one of these to do all of our little pie shape appliques. So there you go. That's how I did it. Let me know if you're going to do it that way, if you've got a different way of doing applique, or if you're going to piece it. I'd love to know. Whew, okay. Let's go on to the next block. All right, you've got future carry here for Ben's bow tie. H10 Ben's bow tie. I'm not making any changes to this block. It was when I printed it out that I noticed that there were some Y seams. And so I put it together already and figured out I can resection this block to make it go together much easier. So let me show you how to do that. Let's go to Foundation, or Print and Export Foundation. And you can see here that they want you to eventually put this section together, and there will be 4 of them. So you'll end up with a Y seam in all 4 corners. So what I want to do is resection it so that we just have rows to put together. So I'm going to hit Start. I want to section and number myself and hit Start Over. And I'm going to start in the middle here and just go across and group the middle bow tie. So that's done. And then I want to group these out here as single groups. So we've made this row right here. So up here, what we can do is we can start here in this triangle on the right hand side. And so we could start there and do the next one and then the next one and keep going like this until we get seams that cross. So that will be a section. And I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. That'll be a section. And then these little half hourglasses will each be a section. So now we have where we can build these top and bottom rows with the 3 sections that I've just created in each row. Makes it much easier to put together, and that's how I did it. And I wanted to show you how to do it, so you don't have those pesky Y seams in there. Let's see, you're going to have to go back and number it also. EQ8 does a pretty good job of numbering. It depends on up here in the top and bottom. If you want to start with a big piece, you can start in the middle and number out from there, which is what I do. And then you can just number these here. All right, there you go. That is an H10 Ben's bow tie resectioned, so there's no Y seams. All right, so if you hit preview, you can see that we have this top row and this bottom row now that we can put together. And then we'll have this center row also. So much easier than the other way, which the other way probably wouldn't have been too hard, but I don't know. I just try to stay away from Y seams when I can. So there you go. There's H10 Ben's bow tie resectioned. So back to present carry. And then this last one, which is Naiad. Let's take a look at that. And if you go to the foundation paper piece, you can see that we're going to have some Y seams right here in all 4 corners. So we can get rid of that. And I don't think it'll be too hard. And I don't think it'll make much of a difference. So let's come back here to draw. We want to straighten this out. So let's take a line and I want to straighten it out here and here and then down here. Make another straight line. So these sections right here, this center section is just its own row. So if we go back to foundation, look at that. Much easier. It looks better to put together. So there you go. That's how I changed that. That's a real simple change, and I don't think it'll make much difference with those seams. So preview, less pieces here. So yep, it's going to be fun to put together. It's going to be a pretty block. All right, finally we're to RS13, Marlene's Pirouette. This is what it looks like. Let's take a look at the foundation paper piecing. Looks wonderful. No changes here. So yeah, that's what I like. And it's only 4 pieces, 4 sections. Let's get started on week 26 of Dear Jane Quilt Along. And we're starting off with C11, Soldiers and Sailors Monument. I am doing the applique version. And I've got my pieces here. I printed out the templates. I am going to put together the sashing board or whatever you want to call it on the outside of my centerpiece, because that will give me the seam so that I can line up my applique in the middle. So this has just got a short edge and then 2 medium edges and then a long edge. So I'm going to put these together. It's going to actually go like that. I'm going to put this together and then I'll show you how I'm going to get the hole cut out of the center of my applique. Here's my square with my edges put on so that I have the seams. I have cut my fabric with the fusible webbing out for the center. It's going to fit in here like this, and these edges butt up against the seams. But I cut the circle out on the solid line, and then I folded these. I creased both of them so I could get the center. And then I just put a pin through both of them to center my circle on there, and then drew it out. So all I'm going to do is cut my circle out and then fuse it onto my background here. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to line up my edges with the seams that I have created here. There we go. C11 Soldiers and Sailors Monument. And it looks just like the picture over here. So pretty easy. All right, next up is H6 Pie Sail. I modified this for applique, and if you want to see how I did that, it's in the EQ8 portion of this video at the beginning. I printed out the templates for this piece. I am going to, or for this block, I'm going to piece the background. This is what we're going for over here. I'm going to piece the background so that I have the seams so I can line up my pie pieces here and my center. So I have cut out these pieces on the outside, the centers, the corners, and a center block. I'm going to put that together so that I get an entire background that's white. I have traced out this center piece right here onto my dark, and I used the solid line, and that will fit right inside this block right here. And then I traced 8 of my pie pieces, which will be right here in the corners, in each corner. So first thing I'm going to do is put my block together. It's a 9 patch. So I will put it together, nesting my seams, and then we'll come back. I'll have my applique pieces ready to put down. There's my background. I've got my applique pieces cut out. I think I'll start with the center piece, and each one of these straight edges needs to line up with a seam. And there we go. And now each one of these pie pieces is going to have to go like this. So it looks like there's like a pie piece here. So they're going to go in the corners opposite of each other. And these will line up with the corner seams. And there's my first one, and there's that one, and I'm going to finish the other corners. I like how now it looks like it makes a circle. H10 Ben's bow tie. This is what we're going for. I resectioned this in EQ8 so that we didn't have Y seams. So we would be putting together this row, and then this row, and then this row. So this is pretty straightforward. Maybe I'll do one of these here, put these together, and then we'll put our block together. I just realized I didn't go through my cut pieces here, which you can find on my website if you want to use my cut pieces, and the link is down below in the description. So the triangles, the white and the dark, are on the sides here. And then we have 2 big triangles in white and dark that are going to be in the center. We have two dark squares that'll be in the center. And then our long white rectangles, which will be right here. So let me get prepared to put one of these together, these longer pieces. I went ahead and put these pieces together. This one is going to be like that one. These are the 2 center pieces that'll make that bow tie. And then these were really easy to put together because they're just 2 pieces. These will go in the corners on here. And then I sewed my singular paper pieces to the fabric. So here's what I have left to put this one together. So when I numbered this, usually I like to start with the larger pieces first. It just is easier to handle. So that's why I put the F1 in the middle. So we have 1, 2, and I put 3 over here, 4, and 5. I think what I'll do is I'm going to put my piece on 1/4 inch over number 2, but I'm going to sew it on and trim on this side, and then I can do both sides at once. You don't have to do it that way. It's a pretty small piece, but I think I will do that. Okay, I basically tacked my fabric down. Now we can trim. This one should be about 1/4 inch. If it's not, you can trim it. I'm going to come to the other side and trim it. And by tacking it down, you don't have to have a pin in there to get in your way while you're trimming things. So now what I can do is our next pieces are going to be the purple. I can take both of my, well, in my case, the purple or the dark. I can take both of these over to the sewing machine. They are both going to be oriented like that, and I'm going to get them both sewn down right here along this line, and then the next one will be along that line. I have sewn both of these pieces on. I'm going to get them ironed, get them trimmed up, and then we just have the white pieces to put on. Got my dark pieces ironed. I have trimmed my 1/4 of an inch on both sides. So now we can take our white triangles and add them on each side. So they're going to be oriented like that. So just flip them over. I'm going to line my corners up. Both corners are off the edge, so we got plenty of room. I'm going to get both sides sewn on right here, and then the other one will be right there. There we go. Finished up this piece. I'm going to get everything trimmed up, and we'll get our block laid out. I've got all my pieces trimmed and laid out. I've got my bow tie in the middle with these 2 edge pieces, and then I've got my bow ties in the corner. So just, I didn't lay out by section, but if you just put them on the wrong side, they won't be bow ties. So just make sure they go on the right side. Now we need to put these pieces on, and it looks like they will nest. Yep, they'll nest together. And then I think I'll iron these open, and then we'll have our 3 rows. There we go. I got my bow ties on the corners, and at this point it doesn't matter how you lay them, you're still gonna have the same bow ties. I got my center put together. I ironed my seams open, and now we're just gonna put our small bow ties on the sides. So I'm gonna get that finished up. I'll probably iron these open also, and we'll be done with this pretty block. This was a fun one. Next up is L10 Nan's Naiad, I think is what it's called. We do have a lot of pieces here, but they're pretty much kind of all the same. Like, even though this has 2 dark triangles, this has 1, they'll be pretty much the same to put together. These are the same, and then these are the same, and this one's easy. I think what I'm going to do is maybe put one of these together and one of these together, because it will start differently. The rest of these, like, you'll start here in the corner, and you won't have to trim anything at first. So even though these look, I don't know, if I were to look at this, it'd look a little complicated. It really isn't complicated. So I'll put one of these together and one of these together. Also, I have a lot of pieces here. I have to even use my cheat sheet, which looks like this. This is what I provide out on my website if you want to grab my cut pieces, if you like what you see. So I'm not going to go through them. I'm going to use my cheat sheet for this, so I know where they go. All right, let me get everything cut up and ready to go. That's what we're going for. It's kind of a complicated looking block. I have put all my pieces together. It took some time. I really had to lean hard on my notes here for the pieces that I cut. So I've got all those other pieces done. I'm going to work on these because anything I do here you can apply over here. So let's start with this little one. I have already drawn the seam lines out, and I've numbered my pieces. So my first piece is going to be a white piece for me. And I want to make sure I'm at least 1/4 of an inch over the line between 1 and 3. And then that I'm about 1/4 of an inch past the point here at 2. So what I think I'm going to do, since it's a small piece, is I'm going to go over and I'm going to tack it down in the seam allowance. All right, I've tacked my white piece down. I want to turn this back over now because we need to get our seam for number 2. So I'm going to fold it and I'm going to trim it. So now I am ready for my second piece, which is going to be this triangle, which is plenty big. And it's going to be oriented like that. It's plenty big, so I'm just going to put it on here. And then we're going to sew on the line here between E1 and E2, lock stitch right there. All right, there's my first two pieces. We can now trim between those two pieces and E3. And 3 is a white rectangle. You can see where I need to go to over here. So there's my seam allowance. I'm past the point I need to be right there. So now we can sew right in between E3 and E1 and E2. There's the first 3 pieces. Let's come back over here at E4 and trim it up. And I'm gonna grab another of my dark triangles. Dark triangle needs to be oriented like that, so flip it over and it goes off the paper on both sides. So now we can sew our last seam right there next to E4. There we go. There's the E section put together. Not too hard, just starting it right here is where, you know, sometimes you can get a little confused. All right, I'm gonna put that over here with the rest of these. And let's come over here to this C section. And I've drawn out my seams, which is like a zigzag. And my first piece is right here. Let's do seam allowances are out here. So I want to do the same thing on this one. I want to make sure it lays over everything. It's over my seam allowances. It's well over 2 and the point at 2. So I am going to tack this down in the seam allowance so that I can then trim it up. All right, I've tacked it down. Let's trim between C1 and C2 so we can get our 1/4 inch. Grab a dark triangle, and our dark triangle is going to be oriented like that. So I'm going to go back and forth putting on my pieces like you normally do. You trim, add, until I get to 5, and then I'll come back and show you how I do 5. There's the first 4 pieces put on. For the 5th piece, we're gonna have to actually trim this up. So I'm gonna lay it over everything. It's plenty over the seam allowances. The point of my dark is right there. I can see through this. You might be able to see through it too, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my add a 1/4, and I'm going to put the 1/4 inch right where that seam is with the dark triangle. So it goes over a 1/4 inch. And I'm going to mark it. I'm going to actually mark outside here too, so that I know when I flip it over, I want to put that cut edge against that mark. So that's how we cut it. So now when I flip it, I want that corner to hit that mark. So needs to go against the seam, but the corner is lined up with the mark. So now when we sew it and flip it, it will be oriented the correct way. So I am going to sew between C4 and C5. There we go. Got my last piece on, and it's oriented the correct way. So everything I showed you in these last 2 pieces can be applied in some of these pieces over here, but otherwise they're pretty easy to put together. Again, I've got my cut pieces on my website. I've made notes to make changes to make it better for you. And you can get that on my website, and the link is down below in the description. I am going to get all these pieces cut, and we will get them laid out. Not cut, I'm going to get them trimmed. I got all my pieces trimmed. This is how we're laying it out. So our center piece is going to be right here, oriented this way. And then these 2 sections, these are the ones that I cut so that we wouldn't have Y seams right here. So they're going to go together to create this diamond. These 2 diamonds that are in this section part of it, and then right here is going to make it look like this part comes up. Look like the Y seam, but it's not going to be. So we need to sew these 2 together. And then it was interesting that I didn't notice that EQ8, these two are the same. You can see they're the same, but EQ8 did them differently. So we'll put these together along the long edge. We'll put these together along this diagonal edge. And then we can put all these edges together and finish it out. All right, there's Nan's Naiad. Naiad. That's what I'm saying. Naiad. And here's mine. So I did not line these 3 triangle sides up on the right side when I showed you the first time. I did figure that out, got it turned around, and then these V go towards the white section. So there we go. That was an intense block. I don't even know that it's one of my favorites. But anyway, there we go. Next is RS13, Marlene's Pirouette. This is one of our border blocks. It's going to look like that. And now it does have a little bow tie, tiny little bow tie there in the middle. This doesn't seem like it's going to be too difficult. So my pieces are the large triangle is here and here. These go here and here, and we got the square, so that must be B2. I do have my notes here because I'll probably need them because we have a lot of little white pieces. So yeah, I think what I'll do is just note that I do have my cut pieces out on my website, and the link is down below if you want to go there and use my cut pieces, but I am going to use my cheat sheet for this one also. Let's put this one together. I think this one would be pretty easy, and actually on this one right here you can change this to 2 and this to 1 and build it like a flying goose. And then this one will be very similar to this one, except we're adding the large triangle. All right, let's do the C section. I went ahead and put together the other 3 pieces, and they were no problem at all to put together, and that's what they look like. So let's put this one together. So we're starting here with this white piece, and then we're moving up to 2 and 3 here, and then 4 is the tiny little triangle, and then we'll put on the big dark triangle. So I've laid it out here, and I'm going to take my white piece and lay it over my number 2 by 1/4 of an inch, and it's off the paper. So we're doing good, and it's plenty well over number 4 and 5. So I'm going to grab my dark piece, and that's long enough. It's more than 1/4 of an inch past number 4, and it's off the paper. So we can now sew between 1 and 2. Lock stitch at the end. First 2 pieces are on. I've gone ahead and trimmed for number 3. So I'm going to take my other big white piece. I'm just going to line it up with the corner of my dark over here on the left hand side. Here's my seam allowance. So we're looking good. And so between C2 and C3, and we don't need to lock stitch unless you like to lock stitch at your intersections. Next piece is number 4, and it's tiny and it's hidden behind all these pieces. You can see it right here. I have trimmed for it. So now I'm going to help myself out here. That's the edge of 4. So I'm just going to line my point up with the intersection here of the seam right there. I know it's probably hard to see, but my piece is plenty big. So now we can sew on the line between C2 and C4, and we can lock stitch at this point. There's my tiny little triangle right here. So last piece is our big dark triangle. I have trimmed for it. It's going to sit like this in our piece, so we can just flip it over. I'm going to line it up right here with my white, whoops, because my seam allowance is there and there. So I am going to sew on this big line right here between C1 and C4. I'm going to get everything trimmed up and we can put the block together. Here's our pieces trimmed up. So we have our top and here's our middle. And then we need to have the big triangle like this at the bottom and our two triangles facing each other. So these are how the pieces are going to go together. So we can put these two pieces together and then we can add that piece and then we can add this big piece down here. And then we've got our two tiny little appliques that are going to go down here. So let me get this put together. Probably iron seams open unless it doesn't want to be. And we'll put our applique on. I got all my pieces together and ironed all my seams open except for this one. It felt better to iron it towards the big piece. So now we're going to put on our tiny little appliques. I'm marking mine 1/4 inch up from the bottom and I'm going to have it touch the other triangle. And that's how I'm putting it on. And there we go. That is RS13 Marlene's Pirouette. It's kind of a pretty block. What do you think? All right, we finished up week 26 blocks. I really want to know how you did yours. Did you modify it like I did into an applique? How do you feel about the Dear Jane add-on not having an applique version of a couple of these blocks? It really did surprise me on that. So I'd love to hear from you. Remember, you can post your photos on social media with hashtag Dear Jane QAL and tag @CanaryQuilts, and I should find them and I will share them on my social media. Let's get my photo quilt populated, and I'd like to know if you're doing that too, if you have the Dear Jane add-on and you taking photos and populating your quilt also. I think it's a lot of fun to do. I like to see it. Anyway, let's start with C11 and then H6, H10, L10, and RS13. We have filled 2 sides, so I guess we're just about officially halfway. It sure feels like we got more than half the center done, but I don't know. I think we do. Because I think we have, if I remember correctly on my schedule, I think we're going to have some of these borders without center blocks. All right, anyway, hit the subscribe button, notification bell if you want to follow along with this. Let me know how it's going for you. I appreciate you. I'm so glad that you're following along, and I love to hear from you. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.